Welcome to Don't You Two Read, a podcast where two sisters talk about all things books.
We're just two girls who found ourselves texting about books on a daily basis and thought, why not turn on a mic?
We'll be talking about our recent reads, a weekly bookish topic, and what we're looking forward to reading next.
So grab a cup of coffee and maybe even a snack and be prepared to take down your TBR and add a lot to it as we talk all things books.
I'm Hilary, and I'm a mom in Oklahoma, and I am a slow reader.
And I'm Hannah, a stay-at-home mom in Texas who just finished my second beta read.
This is episode 9 of season 1, and welcome. Today in the episode, we will be talking about our favorite books of the year so far. And later, we'll talk about our short list. Okay, so Hannah, I feel like we had opposite topics today. That's crazy because I know did you have 2 this week or 2 ever?
No, I've had 2 ever.
Why don't you tell us about that? We have a little extra time today.
Okay, so the first one, she actually told me I could talk about it, so I'll just talk about it. Tracy Bach, she messaged me.
Yeah.
She messaged me and she was like, I want you to beta read my book. And it's a Christmas book and a romance and whatever. She's like, I know you love Christmas and I just thought you'd be the perfect person to beta read it. I was like, oh, I'm really excited. I don't know exactly what that means, but if you want to educate me, then I'd be interested. So anyway, she was kind of explaining the process for what that looks like. You just read their book, like their manuscript, and she had a questionnaire after I finished, also, but it was like really, she's like, I want you just to pick it apart. Anything that doesn't make sense or anything that you're like, that doesn't sound right. Just, or this is confusing, things like that. And then at the end, you have like a questionnaire, which I think is common because my second beta read had that also, a questionnaire like asking about the characters and the plot and things like that. So it's really fun. I've enjoyed it.
Was this so did an editor see it yet or no? This is you're the first look at it, I guess?
So literally, I saw a post on Instagram today of an author talking about this because she was saying that some authors they do the process differently. Like, especially I think if you're indie, like you could literally do it however you want. And so she was saying, she's like, I highly recommend you do, your first draft and then you beta, and then you do the editor because she's like, if you do editor before you do beta, then you're gonna like adjust a lot. Like you could potentially be adjusting a lot and editing a lot. And then it's like, well, now that portion didn't get edited from the editor. I don't know. So it sounds like ideally the beta would happen early. So you could be changing the plot if you needed to.
I love it. Your second one. Do you have another one coming or just 2? I thought you had another one coming.
I have another one coming soon.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
That's exciting. Well, if anyone needs a beta reader, Hannah does it.
I know. I'm like, I'm just a baby beta reader. And I told Hillary, I'm like, this is so much fun. You need to do it because it's like if someone tells me, I want you to pick it apart. Like, I don't want a hype girl. Like, I need you to be able to tell me. I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time. Like, I'm so excited. Anyway.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I feel like I'm a fault finder at work already, so I don't know if it would be fun or not to me, but I'm glad you get to do it.
You'd probably like it too.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so you are a slow reader. What is this?
Yeah,
What?
I don't know. No, I know I'm a slow reader. I feel like I can read 1 page to Taylor's 8, literally. And I'm like, how can you comprehend it? I think he's a speed reader. I don't know what he is. But he's just like, by the time he knows it, and I'm like, what did it say? And he's able to tell me exactly what it all said. But I feel like I'm such a slow reader. I don't, and I was talking to someone about this, about my ACTs. Do you remember the reading comprehension?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to kill this. This is going to be great. And I did not kill it. Like, I didn't do poorly, but that was like my worst subject, reading, which is funny now.
Are you
I mean,
serious?
yes.
That's
Because I'm like,
crazy.
I can't comprehend what I read, apparently.
I did really well in that portion.
My highest grammar, English, which is,
Yeah.
again, Like I can pick apart, I can diagram, I can pick apart faults, like I can find a problem, I can write I can write well. But like ask me to speed like hurry up and read it and tell me what you read. I'm like, "No, I can't do it."
So, see, I would be the beta, you would be the editor.
Yeah, yes. I think I would be a good editor
Love
because
it.
I'm like, "Oh, I can find your problems. I will tell you what they are." But yeah, so I feel like I'm so slow already on a good day because I hear people it's kind of embarrassing because I hear people talk about like oh, I heard someone talk about Worst Case Scenario, that book I talked about last week, and
Mm.
she loved it, but she was like, just, buckle up for a good 3 hours. And I'm like, 3 hours? That
3 hours.
took me 4 days. No, it maybe took me 2 or 3 days, but no, no 3 hours.
3 hours. I don't even
But then
have.
I'm like, could I sit down and not move for 3 hours?
That's what I was gonna say.
I think my
No.
therapist has suggested I might have ADHD. So I'm like, she's like, have you ever considered that you might have ADHD? I'm like, why? I'm like, no, why?
You're like, why do you say that?
I know. I'm like, what do you mean? No, I don't know. So I don't know if anyone is a slow reader or I saw books by Grace. Grace, she talked about this. Like, I think she does have ADHD, which I don't know if I do or not, but she does, I think. And she talked about like these are tips for reading with ADHD. And I thought that was really cool because she
Mm,
had like all these suggestions, like keep your phone in another room, read in the
mm.
bathtub. And I'm like, man, I need to focus. I just feel like my mind just is like boom, 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 boom.
I think that that is also like our brain, like in 2024 in America,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
guess in any modern country. Like, I feel like it is the attention spans are so small, and
Yeah, and I
like
feel
it
like
can be
it's
hard.
changed over time. Like
Yeah.
I'm reading a book that requires a little bit more attention. Like I was telling you, historical fiction, and it's
Hmm.
not bad, but it does require more attention. And I'm like, I'm struggling to pay attention, which I don't like. Like I don't want to just only read frothy books, but I don't know. And Taylor's like, you're just burned out. You need to fix that problem first. So, anyway, this is not my therapy session today, guys. But we are going to talk about for real, like the books that we have read recently. So, Hannah, what is your first book?
For my first pick this week, I'm going with a book that was one of my most anticipated releases for 2024. This is The Ornithologist Field Guide to Love by India Holton. Here's a synopsis from India herself because I feel like it captures her vibes perfectly. Rival ornithologists hunt through England for a rare magical bird in this historical rom com reminiscent of Indiana Jones but with manners, tea, and helicopter parasols. Beth Pickering is on the verge of finally capturing the rare death whistler bird when Professor Devin Lockley swoops in, capturing both her bird and her imagination like a villain, albeit a handsome and charming villain. But that's beside the point. As someone highly educated in the ruthless discipline of ornithology, Beth knows trouble when she sees it, and she's determined to keep her distance from Devin. For his part, Devin has never been more smitten than when he first set eyes on Professor Beth Pickering. She's so pretty, so polite, so capable of bringing down a fiery, deadly bird using only her wits. In other words, she's an angel. Devin understands he must not get close to her, however, since they're professional rivals. When a competition to become Birder of the Year by capturing an endangered Caladrius bird is announced, Beth and Devin are forced to team up to have any chance of winning. Now keeping their distance becomes a question of one bed or two. But they must take the risk because foul play is afoot and they can't trust anyone. For all may be fair in love and war, but this is ornithology. Okay, so I have been obsessed with India Holton since I first read her book, The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, and every book after that I have loved. I have been obsessed with all of her books. All of them are just top notch for me. This book is India's newest release, and it's the start of a new series of standalones that she's writing. When she announced it, she said this one would be different from her Dangerous Damsels series. So I was curious how I would feel about this new one. And I'm happy to say that the whimsical, magical tone of her previous books is totally in this new one as well. It has that same eccentric, wacky humor that I love. This book is about two ornithologist professors who study all things birds. This book has a lot of bird metaphors all throughout it, which I thought was a really nice touch. And yes, there are helicopter parasols, but I will say this book is more grounded than her previous books. Also, India says that she always includes something that is representative of the neurodivergent spectrum, and I did notice that Beth, the main character, she doesn't understand social cues and she's easily overwhelmed by people. She finds peace and predictability in birds, and I really enjoyed her character. And as for Devin, I found him so sweet. I really liked his character. He brought humor, but he also had some depth with his backstory. There was a scene where he picks up on Beth's social anxiety in a crowd, and he strikes up the most random conversation with people around them just to get the attention off of her so that she can have the space that he can tell she needed. Moments like that were so adorable to me. This is a fun book. The whole book is an adventure where they're pretty much being chased the whole time and they're trying to catch a bird. So it's wild, but it's a great time. This is open door with one scene that was vague and is easy to skip. If you enjoy rivals to lovers, historical romances with a fantasy twist, and lots of quirky humor, pick this one up. And that's The Ornithologist Field Guide to Love by India Holton.
Did you say if this was an arc?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
No, I got denied. I'm like, let's just get into it. I got rejected for this. This was one that I was so upset. I was like, if they only knew that I sing her praises daily.
I had a series I was on. I was like on six, and I think the eighth one came out, and I was like, I'm almost caught up. Like, I'm gonna read the seventh one, and then I'll be caught up. And I applied for the arc, and it was like immediate decline. And I was like, forget it. I'm not reading number seven. I'm done. I'm like, I devoted so many hours to this series. No.
You're like, this is a one-sided relationship.
I see the feeling is not mutual. Anyway. Well, I'm glad that was good for you. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about this one because I have not talked to you about this at all. This is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone.
You read this?
Yes.
Do you know
I-
how I feel about it?
you like it, right?
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
okay. Okay, go ahead.
That's why I didn't tell you that I read it. I didn't even put it on Goodreads at all. I was like, no, I'm gonna read it. And
This is Hillary's MO. She will hide so I won't know. It's very rude.
but I
Okay.
was like, I'm gonna try it, and then if I don't like it, I'm just gonna stop or not say anything. So anyway, I did. I read it and I finished it. Okay. This book starts out with Eve at the doctor's office. She's pregnant, and it was definitely not planned. She has one drunken night with a cute bartender, and surprise! Now we follow Eve as she navigates this scary new adventure. We watch her tell the baby's dad, her family, and her best friend who is struggling with infertility. Eve initially feels utterly alone, and that moved me so much. She knew from the start that she was keeping the baby, and she knew that she had to do it alone. I couldn't help but think that she was so courageous, and I wanted to cheer her on every step of the way. She finds new friends. My favorite was her nurse, Louise, and leans on some old ones. For example, her childhood friend, Shep. I'll say now that Shep is the guy we're watching right now. It is not the baby daddy. He is mentioned in the story, but he is not the focus of the book. He's not like the lead in the book. Shep is everything, literally. He was the kindest soul to ever be written on page. It melted my cold heart. Hannah was the one who recommended I try this book a while ago, and I finally got to it. I did it on audio, and this was one of the few times I will tell you that you must get this on audio. The narrator was amazing. I don't know if I've ever heard better. Okay, I have two content warnings for those who care. Um, One, this is open door, but you can skip ahead. I had some awkward moments trying to skip ahead on the audio because sometimes the narrator got super into it. And with a spicy scene, yikes, it was too much for me. So just be aware of that. I was like, there's a couple times no, maybe one of the times I was in the shower and I had my AirPod in and I was like, oh my God, this is getting like, I had to like step out of the shower and be like, skip, skip, this is getting too much. Where like a book would be just easy to just like flip the page or whatever. And then the second thing is there was a mention of the mom saying that the baby will decide their own gender later, so she didn't want to know. What I think is funny is that later, when the baby does arrive, the mom is like, "Oh, look at my little insert gender here." So I felt like it was a political statement just for the sake of it. It was a small moment, but I wanted to mention it because I have seen some people comment on that on Goodreads. So, anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. Either way, I loved it. It was such a good experience for me. I don't really have any negative things to say other than, my content warnings. But either way, it was still a 5-star for me. So that is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone.
I'm so glad you loved it. I love that one. It
I
was
didn't
so
think, I
good.
wasn't sure, like, I wasn't going to read it whenever, like, it's about a pregnancy. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know that I want to read this. But it was very good. And Eve was just so, like, I think she just had, if you've had a baby or if you've not had a baby, it's fine. It works for you. But if you've had a baby, it is like spot on all her thoughts, like about
Mhm.
her food and her being super tired. It was very funny. And the narrator was just so good. I just can't get over it. I don't know that this will mean anything to anyone, but Shep reminded me of Arthur from Arthur's Christmas. Do you know who?
What?
Yeah, just that the same, not how he looks, but like in like his energy, how he's just like so kind, like so thoughtful, so pure of heart. Like it was
Yeah.
almost unrealistic.
I was gonna say, I did think that. It was such a good story and it did have depth, but I did think that I was like, is this entirely realistic?
No, Shep had no flaws, I don't think. Like
Right.
there was nothing that was a flaw. Like he was perfect.
Yeah.
So is that realistic? No, but we're talking about, like, a surprise pregnancy, so I think there was enough, like, drama in the book. Like, that was enough
Yeah.
drama because she was like, "Okay, I'm keeping the baby, but I don't know, like, how am I gonna make enough money? How am I gonna live?" Like, the dad is an issue in there as well. Like,
Yeah.
his involvement is questionable. So, um,
Yeah.
I think there's enough drama on its own, and like I said about the fertility, that is, like, that is a trigger warning too, obviously. If you don't want a book about pregnancy or infertility, I would just skip this the whole thing is about
Yeah.
that. I did think they handled it really well though. And I thought it was very realistic how the friend reacted to the pregnancy at first. It upset me how she responded, but it all ended up okay. So I really loved it. I'm going on and on about it, but did you listen to it?
No, I read
I feel
it.
like if you ever read it again, you should listen to it because it's impressive.
Yeah. I really liked it. I haven't seen anybody not like that book, honestly. Like it's it's up there. I feel like I've seen like just so many people love it.
Apparently, she has a big backlist, and I haven't read or heard of her
Mhm.
otherwise. Okay, what's your next book?
For my second book, I'm picking a standalone fantasy that one of my favorite authors, Erin Phillips, recommended on her Instagram. This is Saints and Monsters by Ellen McGinty. Let's get into the setup. With her crooked spine and reckless heart, Princess Mira always knew she wasn't meant to become Queen of Ezo. But when her sister, the rightful heir, is cursed, on the eve of her coronation, Mira must defend her kingdom from ruthless invaders by taking the throne. But while some countries have simple coronations, in Ezo the princess must first claim a sea dragon. The dragon is vicious, perfect, and whole. Everything Mira is not. And if the dragon doesn't deem her worthy, it will devour her. Turning to the saints for help, she doesn't anticipate that her actions will transform the dragon into a mortal, and that she'll steal his heart, literally. Now, as two hearts beat inside of her chest, Mira is reminded that her life is entwined with a dragon who despises her weaknesses. Despite their differences, they must work together to reverse the curse and save the kingdom before more is lost than their stolen hearts. Okay, so when I first read this book, I went into it completely blind. I did not know what the plot was. I did not know anything about it. I just knew that Erin Phillips said she loved it. So I jumped in and I was really enthralled by the journey. There are queens, sea dragons, assassins, lies, and betrayals. This book was a wonderful ride to be on. Not only is it a great epic fantasy that can be read as a one and done, but the author recently announced that she's working on another book set in the same universe with a POV of a character that comes from this one. I thought that this was a great YA fantasy. If you don't normally read fantasy, I think this is a great place to start because it was fairly simple to follow and not a whole lot of complicated world building was involved. It was just under 400 pages, so it didn't feel long to me, and it did feel like a quick read for a fantasy. I do read fantasy often, and I still felt like this was unique enough to set it apart from other fantasy novels that I've read. I will say this is more focused on an epic journey with just a tiny sprinkle of romance. So I would say don't go into this looking for a romance, rather for the epic fantasy elements. This is primarily about Mira's journey, as she has significant weaknesses that she has to overcome. And I think that there's a lot of redemption in her arc. My one comment that I think is a good heads up is the writing style between the POVs. There are some writing style changes depending on which POV we were in. So in Mira's POV, it was written in first person, and in the other POVs, it was written in third person. It didn't bother me, but I did notice, and I also have seen a lot of reviews, not for this book specifically, but in general, that don't like when this change happens between POVs. So I thought that would be a good heads up going into it. This is, I would say, closed door, but nothing really happens in that regard. As far as I remember, I would say it had no spice, maybe a kiss, but I would not even probably put it in that category. If you enjoy dragons, strong female characters who have significant setbacks with a Victorian Japan setting, pick this one up. And that's Saints and Monsters by Ellen McGinty.
Cool. Okay. My next book is A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This book was on my short list a few weeks ago, and it was literally one of my most anticipated books of the year because I'm such a big fan of The 7 Year Slip and The Dead Romantics. And I mean, you guys heard me going on and on about how, like, I'm so excited about this book. It sounds so cute and so lovely. Okay, so here's what the book was about. Eileen, Elsie, which I do not see how you get Elsie from Eileen, but no.
I thought
It
that was her last name.
No, Elsie.
Okay.
Yeah, Eileen Elsie Merriweather has had the worst year ever. After being essentially left at the altar by her fiance, she is then forced to cancel everything and notify everyone because she's the one who knows where to find all of that information. Every day is much the same. She teaches at her job that is just okay and can't seem to move on with her life. Her only comfort these days can be found in her book club and reading her favorite cozy romance series, Quixotic Falls. Whenever she sees her ex fiance's wedding on Instagram, Elsie has had enough. She takes off on a trip to a cabin in New York for some much needed time away with books, snacks, and wine. She just really needs to get lost in a good book. On her trip, Elsie is quickly caught in a torrential downpour and is forced to pull over to a small town for refuge. Lo and behold, guess what the small town is? It's Aloriton, the town in her favorite romance novel, where the taffy is always sweet and everyone gets a happily ever after. Elsie's enchanted by the town. Think Stars Hollow. But she truly has no idea what's going on and is determined to get to the bottom of it. Why is she here? How is it possible? And will she get her own happily ever after in this town? I was so excited for this book. Like I said, it was my most anticipated book, or one of them this year. So I'm very sad to say that this book was not for me. So I'm going to go a little hard on this book. I don't feel like I've gone this hard. Maybe when the moon hatched. But yeah, that's the same vibes here. First, this book presents itself as a romance. No. I mean, it says a novel love story. No. There is a romance element, but it is subplot, which I guess I should be thankful for because I truly hated it. Truly. I didn't feel a stitch of chemistry. The leads were just rude most of the time, and then they randomly kissed, and I was like, what the heck? Gross. Also, the word mint or minty was used to describe the male lead's eyes 29 times. And I was surprised that it was that few because it drove me batty. And I have that in all caps. It felt like that was the only descriptor for him, just over and over. Mint eyes, his minty gaze, his mint eyes, his. And then she every now and then will throw in another green adjective, but I'm like, mint. Have you ever seen mint eyes in your life? I haven't. So it felt like that was the only thing to say about him. Where, like, oh, yeah, by the way, his mint eyes looked at me. So I guess that really was the only descriptor for him because the characters felt very flat to me. Also, I can't spoil the book, but the male lead does something at the end of the book that I was appalled by. Just, I mean, I could not forgive it. I could not forget it. So it ruined the ending. I was like, I'm done. I hate this man. I hate this. And I feel like I'm fairly forgiving to like unlikable characters. And I was like, no, I'm done. I don't like it. I don't like this book. I can accept that the romance isn't the main plot, but I need something else, like found family. And I think this book did try to do that. But again, all the characters are very one dimensional. I just didn't care. I thought the premise was so good. Like it had so much potential, but the whole plot and character development felt so chaotic and lackluster to me, which is funny because I feel like those two things should not coexist. But I would say that I just recommend you not pick this book up. Like anybody, I don't know. I don't know who I could in good faith recommend this to. Um it's so sad because I was looking forward to it. I just think there are a lot of better options out there this time. So that's A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. And I don't think
Wow.
she's listening. I don't think she's listening. I wouldn't be like this if I thought she was listening.
I'm like, woof.
Yeah, it was not. It was not great. But I feel like, to be fair, I feel like most of the books I've said on here, if I was like, it was okay, but I'm always like, but I think if you like this, you'll like this. If you
Yeah.
like, but this is one that I was like, I can't do it anymore. I can't. I'm, but again, add this to the file of this is why I don't get my hopes up. So
Why?
this one,
What kept you reading and not DNFing this book?
probably because I got too far and I was like I said, I've been reading slow and I was like, nope, this is on the list to review.
And did you buy
So
it?
no, thankfully. I saw a couple people review it that I trusted and I had pre-ordered it, like I said on the podcast, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm so bored. I don't think I can get through this book." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And so I canceled my pre-order and I put a hold at the library.
Well, sounds like
So,
that was for the best.
so I think Hannah, you need to have your this is why I read romance file, and then
Yeah.
I will have my this is why I don't get my hopes up.
That one is much more sad.
I'm like, that's why I don't trust people.
Uh,
Uh, okay, so those were our recent reads this week. Okay, so for this week, we wanted to do a little check-in for us. We're a little over the halfway point of the year. So we thought we would talk about what books we have loved this year so far. Not all of them, but just the top 5 books that we think these could be some of our favorites for the year if the year ended like right now. But we thought it'd be interesting to see like if these books hold to the end of the year or if hopefully, maybe we'll read some even better ones that they'll get overthrown. So that would be a really even, a great year. So we just thought we would chat. I have my list, but I don't have like a ton of scripted stuff. So we'll see what happens. So do you want to go just name one? We'll just bounce back and forth.
okay. My first one is I Got You by Stacy Williams. I've probably talked about several of these on the episodes in the past because they're my favorites. And, like, of course, I'm pulling those first to talk about. I love this one because it's closed door, but it has amazing chemistry and it also has cuss words, which I know that sounds funny. It's like, I will say, I don't love cuss words as a general rule, but I feel like this book has characters that did feel real to me. Like, it didn't feel like they, I don't know. This comes into my book icks.
Yeah, Hannah, I'll say it. The inheritance games, which is I listed that. What didn't I talk about that
Oh,
last week?
how did I not
I
bring
don't
this
know. I was waiting
up?
for you to bring I love that book. Hannah liked it too.
I
But
love the book.
there's a side character and
Max.
she Hannah read this book years ago and still talks about
That's
her.
why I buried her in my brain and then I'm like, "Oh my God." Okay, Max, they'd be like Mad Max and Max had every cuss word fake you've ever heard. She'd be like, "You foxing you foxing fluff," or I don't know what. Like for every sentence that she would say, she had something ridiculous.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a normal like it wasn't like, "Oh my gosh." It was just like, "Oh, gourds," or I don't know.
Yeah. I hated that so much. And yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so yes, I don't like it. She was the like perfect example, the worst. But you see it a lot. I feel like you see it a lot in closed door. It's weird because I feel like open door will go there in all of the topics and in all of the
Yeah, people suggest that I've noticed in that world they combine the two, like
Mhm.
intimacy and language as the same
Yes.
like together. I never did, but I think it's interesting people do.
I think it's because a lot of the community who wants to read it.
Like religious reasons. Yeah.
Yes. That it's like we're advertising to, for the lack of better word, like a clean romance is what I feel like it's called on the internet. And so a lot of people who read clean romances or closed door, they would also assume to not want to hear or read curse words or XYZ, like someone who's pregnant and they're not married, or you know what I mean? Like things that
Yeah.
can be like taboo. And so Stacy does not play by those rules. I love it. She has like deep storylines. She has people that have like trauma. She has it's closed or fade to black, but yes, they feel real to me personally. So I will rave about Stacy Williams forever. So that's my book one. That's my favorite so far. What is yours?
My first book is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I'm not gonna just pick one. In my mind, when I say that, I'm just picking them all, which the series is not over. It will be soon, but I don't know. That's to be decided. It'll come eventually. But I'm excited for Penn. She was or is an indie author, but her book did get picked up for traditional publishing. And so you should be able to find it, I guess, like at Target or, Barnes and Noble. I think that's so exciting. I'm excited because they were kind of a little bit hard to come by, so I want to own these books. I just think I know like Hannah said, we've talked about it, so I'm not going to go over the plot. I will put in the show notes where these are found if we mention them. But I love this book, love the series. Like I love Luther, who's the main lead in there. Like I know we talked about like Shep is amazing in Ready or Not, but like Luther is like he is flawed, but he is like my idea of a perfect male lead. I love it's found family. There's magic. There's like history in this world, dragons, um, a map, like everything. I don't know. I don't know what else you could ask for. Like I like this better than I don't know if I want to say that. It's not over yet, but I have really enjoyed it. I think I might like it better than A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yeah, so far the first three books, I feel like they're solid.
Like we'll see how she lands the plane.
Yeah.
Like that's how I think about it. We'll see how she lands, finishes it. But I just think I have just thoroughly enjoyed it. All of them so far. They've just been all three, right? Yeah, all three. I've just been like, man, every time, just again, another good one. So I'm very excited for what Penn is doing and what she's making a new series after this. So yeah, Spark of the Everflame. I don't see that coming off my list, but we'll see. So yeah, that's my first book, Spark of the Everflame.
Yes, we love it. I love it. And I can't wait for the next one. Okay, my second one, A Crown of Chains by Erin Phillips. I love this one because it's an Esther retelling in the most creative way. It completely pulverized my heart. It's a dark fantasy. It is not a romance, but it's wildly engaging and compelling. And you still haven't read it yet.
I was just looking at my Bible app right now because I said that I think I'm gonna hit Esther soon in September. So I think it's almost time for me to read that. I'm excited.
That'll be like the perfect time of year to read it too.
Is
Mm.
it like fall vibes?
I feel like I don't know that it like says that it's fall time, but I feel like that. I think because it's like dark and like I feel like Erin Phillips, both of her books, which we'll talk about her other one in a minute, but both of her books give me that vibe. I think just because they have like a dark
You're like spoiler.
spoiler alert.
I don't even know. I'm excited. Yeah, September 22nd is whenever I'm on in Esther. So I will be reading that soon, I guess.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm like
Yeah.
I'm over here like maybe I'll just reread it.
Yeah, Hannah has autographed copies of her
I
books.
know.
Like
I
she goes, I
know.
don't want her to think I'm crazy.
I know. I'm like, I hope she's not listening because I've already mentioned her twice, and then we already know another one is coming. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
at least you're mentioning her on the best, not like the worst.
Okay.
Which I'm
What?
sure those are coming another time. Okay, my next book, The One with the Kiss Cam by Cindy Steele. Um, this is my only, I would call this like a true rom-com type of book. Like super light, super fluffy. I really enjoyed this book a lot, obviously. Like it has just about everything. I don't know, it just hit at the right time for me. It was just very uplifting. I loved like we had loving grandparents, which I don't think I talked about in my review. We have a lot of tropes, but it's just a romance. Like there's some stuff that happens in the middle, but with these types of books, you're like, there's no doubt in your mind they're going to end up together. It's going to be fine. This one is closed door. Again, we're going to do an episode eventually about spice, but we are still trying to get our heads wrapped around how to talk about that one. But I don't know. I guess this would be closed door, but I don't know that anything happens for the door to be closed, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
This is why it's just complicated. And for me, like me, Hannah, personally, I have like open door is explicit, and I'm
And
like
closed is not. Yeah.
closed is everything else. But
Yeah.
also, I mean, duh, like you have books like Harry Potter, you're like, that's not closed door. You know what I mean? Like that's just like
Yeah. That
nothing.
insinuates other stuff happened.
Yeah, so it's complicated, but yeah.
Basically, what I'm saying is there's not on page anything explicit in here. Um, but yeah, I loved it. Like I completely and you know what? This is my second Cindy Seal book. And the first one was Faking Christmas. And that one, I loved that one too. She's just a really good author.
I like her books. I like her romances a lot. So, yeah, I want to read that one. Okay. Next, Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love by Is This Self-Care? This is the Draco and Hermione fanfic. It is not a book. And
Here we go. I'm like, a work of art.
I love this not book because it gave me all the wonderful things about the Harry Potter universe while also giving me something totally new. And it gave Draco Malfoy the story that I really feel like he deserved. So go ahead and sue me. I know a lot of people feel ways about Draco, and this is the hill I will die on. I love him and I just don't care. So anyway, I really, really like this one. Yes, that's my third.
I'm switching up mine, because mine were like in no particular order. My next one is Manacled by Sen Lin Yu. I feel like I had to talk about it and, piggyback off of the other one. I loved this. I mean, I cried like Taylor got home and I was like reading it and I'm like, like, I don't know. It just really got to me big time. And I'm like, it's just so beautiful. Like, I don't,
Do you cry often in books?
not with most books, but it's not crazy that I cry. If it really moves me, I cry. But
So that one gotcha.
yeah, I mean, usually if I cry in a book, I did not hate the book. I usually like it a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's very, very dark. Like torture, like Hermione is tortured. She is held prisoner. It is, oh my God, it is so dark. But it is another Draco and Hermione romance, much darker than the other one Hannah talked about. But I don't know, it just moved me. Um, it's just if you can stomach it, I would just recommend trying it. I know, like Hannah said, it's not like a book, but I'm counting it. It was like one of my favorite things I've read so far this year.
Okay. My next one is A Bond of Briars by Erin Phillips. I have not brought this one yet to the podcast, and I plan to soon. So, just to keep it simple here for today, obviously, I have found a new favorite author this year. I think I love Erin's book so much because they just feel very unique to me. And if you notice, all except one of these on my list, they are like fantasy. So I feel like I am hitting like a fantasy era this year. And those are like my favorite books this year. So this one is a dark cottage vibe, but there's blood magic. There's a lot of turns on the journey. There's moments that I was like, I don't even know how this is going to end, which I think is I would say a common denominator in all of Erin's books, where I'm like, where is she going to take us here? Like, I could see this going one of 10 ways, and I just like it's harder for me to predict exactly where she's going to take me, but I really love them for that reason. So this one is A Bond of Briars by Erin Phillips, and I didn't mention it, but it is a retelling of Ruth. I would say a loose retelling of Ruth from the Bible.
I read this one first. Like Hannah read the other one first, and I read this one first. And Hannah texted me. She's like, Hilary, I just need to know, does she end up with this guy? And I was like, stop it, go away.
She's like, "No, I'm not going to answer any of your questions." I was like, "But is it happy?" And she's like, "Just keep reading." And I'm like, "But I'm upset."
I'm like, have you not read the Bible story Ruth before? That should tell you how this ends. She's like, no, I don't know. I don't see this. She's like, I don't see any of this going well.
Yeah, I was like, "No, I've read Ruth," and I'm like, "I know." Like she again, so creative, blows my
Yeah, if
mind.
you did not know it was a retelling of Ruth, I don't know that it's very subtle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why she's like the master of retelling, because I feel like she is very subtle, but if you know, you know. Like you will see certain things that you're like, "Oh my gosh, mind blown."
Yeah, I saw her do an interview on Instagram Live once, and someone said, hey, if you could do another Bible retelling, what would you do? And she was like, well, I'm working on something else right now, then that's going to take a few years. But she's like, I think it'd be cool to tell the story of, I forget the name. I don't remember the name. But the girl that stabbed the king's or one of the warriors'
In
eye out
Judges?
or whatever. Yes, and Judges. She's like, she gets the stake and shut like kills it. And I was like, yes,
Yes.
I hope she does. Like that will be so good.
Yes. That's fun.
Yeah. Okay. My book, next book is Heartless Hunter by Kirsten Sigarelli. I feel like that might be my top book of the year. I don't I don't know that that one's gonna get thrown off. Gideon, I just said it about Luther too, and I'm like, never mind, it's not Luther, it's Gideon. Gideon is my favorite. Um, I don't know. I don't have any complaints about this book. Like, I loved Gideon. I loved the world, like it, the vibes. Oh my gosh, this is the perfect book to read in the fall. I did not read it in the fall, but I wish I could go back and read it for the first time in the fall. Like it is exactly, it feels like London in the fall at night, like with the fog, with like the bell towers, with like the lamppost, like it
Hmm.
is just like the vibes are strong on this book. And there's a scene in here. I think I've talked about it. I'm gonna talk about it again. There's a scene and it's like a chase where Gideon is chasing Rune in this warehouse. Oh my God. Like I kept texting Hannah because Hannah read it and I'm like, have you gotten to the chase? And she's like, no, no chase. I'm like, have you gotten to this chase scene? Like, it's stress. Because I was reading it and I was like, okay, almost time for bed. I'm just gonna read a few more pages. And then it was that scene, and I was like, I can't, I have to keep going. Like it stressed me out so much in the best way. Like I don't see anything being better than this. I pre-ordered Rebel Witch and I just looked at it today. I'm like, when is that book getting here again?
When does it?
Soon. I think it's in October.
Really?
Let me check before I just let everyone's hopes down. I just checked it. Oh, I lied. I knew it. It was another book that I looked at. February 18th.
Oh, fake news. Okay. Well, here's my next one. Heartless Hunter. I have my notes. Well, did you have anything else to say about it
No,
before
I
I
was just saying I pre-ordered it and I was looking and I saw ARCs are out because I saw
Yeah, I've
someone.
seen several people and I'm like,
They said
"How?"
NetGalley, and I was like, I don't want it. I don't want an
I
art. Like,
haven't seen it on NetGalley.
oh, well,
So
someone did. It's
I
there somewhere.
I'm like, "Let me, I'm gonna go right
I'm not
now."
gonna request it. I don't want it. Like, I don't want any pressure to review it. I already ordered it. It's coming to my house, and I'm like, I'm gonna take the day off, and I'm gonna read this book in the winter. Yes, I am so excited. And here I go, putting my hopes up again. So,
Well, this was my last one, Heartless Hunter, Kristen Seccarelli. This book is book one in a duology, and everything about this book made me love reading. The mystery, the cat and mouse chase, the romance involving two brothers. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was heart-wrenching. This did have a moment that I did not full cry, but like I got emotional. I almost cried, which is rare for me, and I could not put it down. And I have in my notes, I don't know how this one won't go down as a favorite once the year is over. It was good. It was great. And I never would have even read it, I think, if Hillary didn't bring it, because I remember Hillary brought it to the podcast and I had had it on my holds for the library, but I did not. Like, I was like, like when you have something on your holds and then you get it and then you're just not, you're like, I have no interest and it just lapses and it goes away. That's probably what would have happened with this one. But I was like, oh, well, Hillary said that it was one of her favorites, so I should try it. So, anyway, yep, I loved it.
yeah, that book makes me be like, I'm not gonna ever like anything like this much again. Like it's me, like sadness on Inside Out.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna love anything again.
Yeah.
It was so good though. Okay, my last one, obviously, I feel like this is a letdown now. After I'm like, this was the best book in the world. It's not a letdown. I still really loved it. Um, I'm like, whatever, we're done. I'm like, I'm done. That's it. No.
What is it?
I'm like, I don't even know why I'm gonna talk about it. I just said Heartless Hunter was the best book ever. That's why I should have put them in order. I just messed up. Okay, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I loved this book. I did not call it a rom-com because I don't think it's a rom-com. It's definitely romance, but romance
Contemporary.
more plus more. So
Yeah.
we have romance, we have mental health representation, we have troublesome family for sure. We have like boundary settings, nurses, like she's a nurse, he is like a cinnamon roll. It's the whole if he wanted to, he would. Abby just doesn't miss for me. Like she is just so good. We talked all about her in our last episode. No, was it our last episode?
Two.
Recently.
Yeah, 2
2 weeks ago.
ago.
Yeah, she's just amazing. And I read this at Hannah's house in Houston. I just brought the physical copy with me, just like, I don't know, we'll see. Like, I probably won't have a lot of time to read, but I read that one really like in very few sittings. Like, I just sat down during like bedtime and just not on the airplane, in the airport. Like, I was just that person walking around in the airport with this book. Like, I was just man, I just flew through it so fast. And so to me, if I could read on vacation in the airport, on the airplane, like in the house with 100 children, uh, I mean, it's just a winner. Like I can't, that's a 5 star for me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it was good.
that makes me feel better because I've been thinking here, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know if my reading this year has been the best. It's been okay, but I have had some very solid, really great
Yeah.
books.
Yeah, I've had like a lot of busts
You
lately.
you had to narrow it down though, right? Like
I
this
did,
is not all
yeah.
of them.
So I would say I started out the year like really strong. And I would say honestly, the summertime is where the slump has happened, where I have not had like a lot of
Yeah,
like
people's
standouts.
summer reading, when people are like, "Summer reading, I'm so excited." I'm like, "For what?" No. I'm like, this is the worst time of the year. It's only
Yeah.
gonna get better."
And so, yeah, so I have honestly this week I have been I would say the last several podcasts I have been like I don't know, like in a funk. I don't even feel like I like reading. Like I've had a few that are standouts for sure, but not many. And talking about these, I'm like, yeah, this is the feeling. Like that's the feeling that I chase that I'm like where you could be in a big slump like I was whenever I read Heartless Hunter. I had been in a slump for a long time. And then you were like, read Heartless Hunter. And then I was like, oh my gosh. So, like, you get totally excited about reading again. So, hopefully, you know, hopefully you try one of these out. And if you have and you have your standouts, you can let us know what yours are so far.
Yes, so far so good. So, okay, Hannah, what is on your short list of books to read or like what's coming up for you?
Okay, I have The Illusion of Stars by Sarah Marie Page on my short list. This is advertised as an enemies to lovers romantasy with a slow burn between a spy and an enemy general's second in command. They're on opposite sides of a pending war. The author said this book is Draco Hermione coded, and therefore I knew it's a must read for me. Which is funny. That's another theme in this episode. Like, we've talked about that a lot. But yes, I'm very excited to try this one out.
Okay, I have a question. What does coded mean? Inspired?
This is literally, I think, a Gen Z.
Yeah, I'm like, what is coded?
I don't know. Okay, I'll be honest. I think it just means, yeah, inspired or like the vibes or
Oh,
like or
yeah.
I don't know. Look, I'm
I
old
have
too.
seen that word around, but I was like, I don't know what coded
I've seen
means.
it a lot from young people. I did not make this up. This is what the author had
No,
on
I
here.
know.
I was like, let's just be clear. I don't know what I'm saying. Someone much younger than me probably came up with
Like,
this.
Sarah, if you're listening, what is coded? She seems to be very nice. She is messaging me on my Instagram. Because I also want to read this book, and she messaged me, and she was like, "I love your Kindle case," and she's like, "Here's mine." So she's just seems like really down to earth. So you should follow her.
Coded is a social media slang term used to refer to someone or something that has stereotypical or shared traits. For example, if someone shares traits with the fictional character Pikachu, then
Oh
they
my
are
God.
Pikachu coded. You're
Yeah, so
welcome.
yeah, cue the Bluey and Bingo
I'm like,
grannies.
that's according to later.com. That's
Oh
my
my God. Yeah,
citation.
we're old. We're old. We are millennials.
Okay,
Okay,
what's
I
on
got
your short list?
yeah, that I'm like I understood. I knew it was inspired. I just didn't trust my gut. Okay, on mine for the short list, it's The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I'm very excited about this one. I bought it on Pango. And it is, books are getting so expensive, guys, like 30 something bucks now. Um, but I love Pango, and I got it, I think, for like $11, and it was in perfect condition. So I'm excited because the wait list was like 400 weeks, on Libby, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
was just too long. And so I bought it, and I'm really excited to get into it because on Oklahoma right now, let me look. Right now it was 103 today. But on Saturday, it is rainy with a high of 75, and I'm so excited. And so I'm like, that's it. This is my Saturday book. I'm going, and I don't have, like, I'm not singing that day. I'm not working that day. So I'm like, I'm sitting my butt. And Taylor, actually, just today, he was like, you need to take better care of yourself. You need to, while I'm crying, but he's like, you need to take better care of yourself. This is why you're burnt out. You need to go Saturday and go do something for yourself and stop feeling guilty. So that's now I'm like, that's it. Saturday, I'm taking the God of the Woods to a coffee shop with my headphones, and I'm just gonna,
That's exciting.
I'm excited just I hope I can get through it. But it's just about, if you don't know what it's about like set in the 1970s, and the girl goes missing at a summer camp, and that's already weird. But then her brother also went missing at the same camp years before. So we don't know why or what's going on. But I'm like, yes, the 70s. I love reading about the 70s. It seems like a little bit historical, a little bit like mystery, thriller, and everyone says it's good for this time of year. So I'm excited. It's big. I want to say it's like, nah, it's not that big, but it felt like almost 500 pages. So it felt big, like for a thriller to me.
Mm.
But
I've seen it everywhere, so I'm definitely curious. I know nothing about it. I just know it looks like nail polish, and I told Hillary, I was like, "That's the nail polish book." But she said,
someone said, I don't know what it is either, but someone said, I love how the cover ties in with the story. And I was like, oh,
"Oh, it's
interesting.
it's
So,
eye-catching for sure." Okay,
yeah.
yeah, let us know. You'll have to come back, bring it.
Yeah, hopefully I actually follow through with this one. So we'll see.
You've followed through with a few so far.
I've been, well, oh, that's why. You asked, why did you finish Novel Love Story? I'm like, I don't know.
Oh.
Because of that, because I just said, I'm like, man, I am so flaky. I don't ever read whatever I say I'm going to. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm going to talk about this book. And then I'm like, see, it's the worst. It was terrible. So, anyway, have a good day.
I don't know how to end from that.
So, I'm like, so anyway, have a good one. If you've made it this far and didn't add this episode to your DNF pile, thanks a bunch.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode for the Don't You Two Read podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our recently read books and hopefully getting to know us better as we begin this podcast journey with you guys.
We will be including timestamps in the description on every episode so you can check there for books or products that we mentioned in today's episode.
Be sure to tune in to our next episode when we will be chatting about all things books. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Don't You Two Read Podcast, and you can find me at Hannah Reads.
And I'm at Hilary Reads. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you take a moment to follow us? You can also rate and review us wherever you listen. And as always, please share this with all of your bookish friends.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, we hope you have a magical week filled with 5-star reads.